On today's show, we embrace the Halloween spirit and we discuss characters that we love in the horror realm.
From film, comics, whatever, but everything that we like about horror and this season.
Yes. So beware. We're going where darkness dwells. Hit the tape. Hello. Halloween is on us. The weather is starting to change. The leaves are falling. It now finally feels like Halloween.
That's true.
We have had summer-like conditions up until this point, and it just did not feel right.
No, it didn't. It didn't. Just recently has the temperature starting to change around a little bit, and that made us both start thinking about, the impending Halloween season and finally getting there. And, we decided to go over some of our favorite Halloween characters. And not just necessarily Halloween characters, but like horror characters.
Yeah.
Things that maybe made us jump or things that we thought were really cool, what have you. So we kind of worked out a list, and we both have our input on it.
Yeah.
And why don't we fire off? What do you got, bud?
Fire off. One of the first things I thought about when it came to characters with a horror genre of sorts, it was the Teddy London Mysteries. It's one of my first exposures to what you would call urban horror.
Okay.
Or urban fantasy. It really got into urban fantasy later, but it's about a dude in the first comic. He's a PI, gets hired by the Dame, and it ends up turning into like a more modern interpretation of a Lovecraft type story.
Okay.
But more fun and pulpy PI type stuff.
Okay. So like a little Dick Tracy with some H.P. Lovecraft overtones
But went
type of thing?
through many books.
Okay.
But then later the author went back and filled in gaps, and I tried to read those, and I got confused because I didn't know which book it was supposed to, because I hadn't read the book in dozen years, if not more, the book series. So, but still, stands out as one of the best characters ever. He eventually had a power that was in his family, and he could, kind of like a dream time.
Oh, okay.
And all of his ancestors were there, that he could call upon their knowledge.
And help him through whatever specific type of situation he was in. So that's a nice contact,
One of the coolest things I remember is he was climbing a mountain in Tibet to get to a monastery at the top. See, it kind of jumps.
Okay.
World jumping at times. But he's tracking down a werewolf that's there, that just left his city and trashed it. He finally found where he was. He's climbing a mountain. But it's talking about that, the physical gruelingness of it and him being tired. He went into the dream time and stayed, and one of his ancestors jumped out. That happened to be a caveman, because they talked about his sheer strength.
And endurance, of course.
Endurance to do the climbing for him while his mental state rested. Very
cool.
Yeah, I could see that being a very cool superpower.
Yeah.
But anyway.
My first is, so my wife is a horror fanatic, which you know that. And an epic battle at our place is to find horror films that both of us like, okay? And one of the few that we mutually agree upon was a movie from like 94, 95. It was In the Mouth of Madness.
Oh, yeah.
And the basic concept of the film is a Stephen King-like writer who writes books, and lo and behold, the books actually start kind of Lovecraftian as well. Start coming to life, and the main character in it is played beautifully. Is Sam Neill, but the guy who's playing the Stephen King, he's called Sutter Kane in the movie, and it is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend it. But the character Sutter Kane is so creepy. He's so charismatic. And there's just a lot of neat little scenes, right down to, there's one particular scene where they're both falling asleep, or Sam Neill is falling asleep on the bus, and Sutter Kane actually sitting next to him. And they start talking, and it's the whole premise of Sam Neill coming to grips with this reality bending ability that Sutter Kane has, and Sam Neill's character, basically confronts him and says, not everyone reads books. He's like, well, they're making movies of my books. And by the way, did I ever tell you my favorite color is blue? And then the next scene is he wakes up and everything's in a blue shade, and he wakes up again and everything's back to normal again. Just little creepy stuff.
Yes.
Haven't seen it. I highly recommend it.
It is a good movie.
Your second?
My second is another book. I don't know why I went right to novels when we started.
Wrong with that?
When we started crafting these lists. But Michael Gallatin was a character in a Robert R. McCannum book called Wolf's Hour. And what was great about it was it's a World War II set book.
Okay.
With flashbacks to like almost like an Anastasia type of situation. His family was political. They're taken out in the woods and executed.
And he's the last one.
He lived.
Okay.
So they're out in the middle of the woods. He's dying from exposure when he comes upon a werewolf family. People from different walks of life, different origins, countries. Very interesting little family. Not like they're like in a bombed out house. It's not
Okay.
like it's not like the Howling movies where
I
they're
gotcha.
living large or anything. But they finally turn him into a werewolf. But it talks his journey then and then now, which it's set in World War II, and he's a British spy now. So he gets back behind enemy lines, which it's easy because he can turn into a wolf and get through. But he also has the ability to half change. Say he's a wolf man running through the battle lines, ripping people up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
But it was written smart. It's not written like an exploitation or anything. You know what I mean? It's written like a real fucking book, and that's what makes it phenomenal. Kind of like Dog Soldiers. That was written as an army movie. Now let's throw werewolves in, not the other way around.
Right.
So it felt very realistic and not like, oh, that's funny, kind of thing.
And what was the name of the book?
Wolf's Hour.
Really?
Yeah.
Writing
Highly
that down.
recommend it. And it's like from 1989 or something. It's a very old book. But they're republishing his now with fancier covers.
Of course.
Of course, everything's just text with colors exploding. We're missing the real artistry of book covers anymore.
You're right about that.
Anyway.
You're right about that. Anyway.
Next.
Okay, so I love this comic series. I think it's one of the smartest series. I've currently suffered from comic boredom, and it actually was the first comic I picked up and read, and it's a couple years old now, and they were all great. But one of the truly great villains in the comic series, especially in the first one, which was Welcome to Lovecraft, was Lock and Key. Now, Lock and Key's villain in the first set, Welcome to Lovecraft, was just simply Girl in the Well. That's what it was
Yes,
referenced
yes.
as, okay?
Calling little boy.
It
little boy. Yeah.
Bode, and I think the fact that the character isn't seen through the 5-issue story arc, and it's still getting the youngest of the Locke children to do the things that needs to be done to get her out of the well.
Now,
Go ahead.
correct me if I'm wrong, because I've only read the first collected that you got me for Christmas one year, and it's phenomenal. Isn't the thing in the well even what calls that boy? So it's strong enough that it's reaching out across country, like a Lovecraftian deal, and like speaking to somebody and putting him on a quest
To get to the house.
to get
back to the house.
and
to
it's
get
full
him.
of murder and depravity. It's
So-
yeah.
It is one of the most well-crafted stories over so many books. And honestly, if you don't know, it's Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son. And it's been shopped around for movies, TV series. I hope it gets some traction because it is really one of those truly unique stories. I can't recommend it enough. If you haven't read it, you really need to. If you like the horror genre in particular, the comic in and of itself is done beautifully.
It
The
is.
art is gorgeous, and the story is riveting. And I mean, when I say riveting, it literally is one of the few
Yeah.
things I could say that I had to get the next one. I had to get the next one. And so
Sounds great.
great, yeah, great villain, great villain, and creepy, really good stuff. Your next one.
Speaking of creepy stuff, I went with The Creeper, who is the antagonist of the Jeepers Creepers movies. Now,
One of my wife's favorites.
I still
And
love
nieces.
a good high school aged horror movie. Everything horror nowadays, the big name, mainstream shit, all has to be kind of snooty. This is kind of harkens back to the 80s.
Or
and-
Japanese remakes.
Or Japanese remakes.
Sorry.
Oh, fair enough. But I just dig the idea of this dude in a truck going around hunting down people because he needs to eat. But then when they show it, he's a fucking monster driving a truck
In a trench coat.
in a trench coat. And then when you get to the second movie, he's got fucking wings. He's throwing like bioorganic throwing stars and shit at people. It was fucking great.
Conceptually, a great look to the character.
Yes.
They did a nice job of keeping him hidden in the first film. You know what I mean? It was just
Yeah, you didn't even need
yeah.
to make a second film, and he was still creepy enough.
Not a big fan of the horror or the beastie horror genre, but I have to say, those two films in particular, I did enjoy. I did enjoy. Don't tell my wife, but I did enjoy those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the look of it and how they kept him shrouded. I thought that
Yes.
was kind of well done. You know, because there for a while you actually think it's just a nut job in a truck.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Before you realize it's
I
far
mean,
more
it,
than
it
that.
has elements of shit. What was that Spielberg movie? One of his first TV made for movies,
Oh,
where it's the truck following.
Yeah, yeah,
Because there's
yeah,
aspects
yeah.
of that where he's just
Absolutely.
hunting down.
yeah, the one
people
from
in
like
cars.
'75 or whatever it was. Yeah, I know exactly.
So you got
yep.
that creepy factor too, but that does a great job of obscuring him through
Mm-hmm.
a windshield for most of it. Or when they see him in the distance, it's just a silhouette dragging something. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is going on? Crazy
Yep.
redneck dude or something.
Yeah, he actually defeats the truck by taking it off a cliff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
yeah, sorry.
one of my favorites. Great Halloween movie
Mm-hmm.
too. So check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
Your next one?
So I'm gonna go book or comic book route again. Several years ago, my Kimosabe here introduced me to one of the greatest comics ever. It was a comic that actually came out in like '93, right? '92, something like
yeah,
that.
we were still in high school.
We were still in high school, but I had never seen it, didn't even know it existed. But anyway, the book is Nocturnals. And it is truly one of the best genre-bending comics ever. There's a little bit of horror, there's a little bit of superhero, there's a little bit of gangster, there's a little bit of detective, supernatural. This is just one of those great stories, drawn, painted beautifully by one of the greatest underrated artists in
Needs to work
comics.
more.
Needs to work more. Dan Brereton. If you don't know who I'm talking about, check it out. Does a lot of work for Rob Zombie on some of his albums and stuff like that. Just a
Yeah.
great guy. Read a lot of interviews with him. Just a good dude. But his artwork's beautiful. And one particular character that he does is a gentleman named Fire Lion. And don't ask me why, but the way he draws it, the hair's alive in fire. He carries a sword. And he's one of Doc Horror, which we'll get into later, minions, for lack of a better term.
Well, he's part of the
Family.
the team, the
Yeah,
family.
yeah, the family. And to not give anything away, because I really hope anybody who's watching this, you need to read them.
Yes.
They're just fantastic books. And if nothing else, the visual media that is done in is also
yeah,
breathtaking.
it's stunning.
It is. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And it's one of those things that I'm indebted to you too, because it is one of my favorite things.
Thank you. Yeah, if you can see the poster here.
Same one I have, as a matter of fact. But yeah, it's great stuff. And one of my favorite characters ever is a gentleman named Firelion. Just sword, fire, burner, great stuff.
Yeah.
You?
Now, like I said before, go right to the novelizations for some reason. But Dean R. Koontz book, when he still had the R in his name, because now
Okay.
it's just Dean Koontz.
Yeah. Yep.
But one of his earlier books, and I remember reading this in middle school, but was Watchers. And a great story about it begins with a Vietnam vet that is going to end it all. He goes
Okay.
into the woods to shoot himself. All of a sudden, a dog comes out of nowhere, like a German Shepherd, and whatever exchange that they have, he doesn't do it.
Okay.
We come to find out
Talks him off the ledge, basically.
this dog is a government creation, and he's super smart. He can't talk or anything. It's not like Scooby-Doo, but he has higher than human level intelligence in a dog's body. And it's a dog's personality. It's not like a human brain was put into it.
I got you.
So one of the cool things, the character's name's Einstein, is what he ends up naming him. And it's to the point where the dog wants to communicate, led him into a store and made him buy a Scrabble game. Then they dump out the tiles and he uses his nose to spell out shit.
Really?
Yeah. But the flip side, the government wanted to create a very hyper intelligent animal. Then they wanted to create a hyper violent animal. And that's the monster in the movie. Or
In the
they
book.
made a shitty movie, but in the book that is hunting down the people that end up getting involved with Einstein. 'Cause
Okay.
it just wants to kill the dog so bad because it's intelligent as well, because it got all the attention. It was so cute. This monster was made because make it sound like it's a hybrid of a baboon with large clawed hands, like it can run bipedal, but it's haunched over with like a baboon.
What movie?
It's a book. It's called Watchers.
And the movie was called Watchers too?
That ended up having Corey Haim in it, not a Vietnam vet, and was the 80s teen
A version
equivalent.
of this, but yeah, okay.
They ended up making one later that was Watchers 2, more like the book.
Okay,
But the damage was already done for me.
gotcha.
So, but yeah, that was one of my first, like I said, in middle
That
school,
sounds
I
cool.
read it, big adult books. And when the movie came out, being angry for the first time, I mean, we had blips of it growing up, but this is bullshit.
This
moment
is nothing like what I
Yeah.
enjoyed, right? I
as
got
an
you.
11-year-old or however old I was. But anyway, from there, what's your next one?
Mine's, believe it or not, this isn't really a character, although it could be classified as a character. I'm going to pick the ship from the movie Event Horizon. So the ship Event Horizon.
Okay.
That is one of the more recent movies that literally scared the shit out of me. And I don't really scare easily. But the camera work, the cinematography of the movie, everything about it, literally, and it was sci-fi. So it was kind of, I'm more
yeah.
inclined to that type of it. But visually, creepy. Okay? And the ship is a perfect backdrop to this madness that goes through this
Yes.
through this ship. So not really a person, but at the same time it almost feels like it has an entity
Yeah,
unto
yeah,
itself.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah, that's great.
it's actually very well acted yet again with Sam Neill. Isn't that interesting?
He's a great
two references
actor,
in
man.
the same night. That's probably a first. But anyway, and also Lawrence Fishburne.
Yes.
And Lawrence Fishburne is the haphazard, or not haphazard, that's a horrible way to put it. He is the forthright captain trying to put an end to this mess.
Yes.
And yet again, very convincing. This is right around the same time as The Matrix, so he's getting some star power
Yeah.
behind it. You know what I mean?
But it also got lost in the sauce because of
It did. You're right about that. You're right about that. But it is truly one of those films that, like I said, I don't scare easily. But that is one that I was like, a little creeped out for a little bit afterwards. You know what I mean?
Understood.
So,
But we're going to end it right there. Come back next time for the next 10 or so between us positions on this list. So until next time, keep being rad, stay dorky. My name's Rob.
and I'm Chris.
See you next time.